Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Online Summit, Day 4. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today we have yet another amazing lineup of speakers coming to us from all over the world. I'll be joined with my co-host, Terry Weems, in the United States. But hold on to your seatbelts and we will bring on a beautiful lineup of speakers for you today. So, if you are new to the HerStory Circle, we are a social impact movement, women from all over the world who come together to share our stories so we can uplift, inspire, energize, motivate, and be the light at the end of the tunnel for somebody who might be going through a similar challenge that we've gone through, someone who wants to learn how to start and create a business. So if you have a story, go onto our website, theherstorycircle.com, register to speak. We are always looking for more interesting stories from women from all over the world. So we're going to start off our day with an amazing young woman who's named Joyce Tang. She is a founder and content creator of the Joyce Tang Content Marketing. She's an experienced content creator who has worked in media, in-house, and advertising industry for over 8 years. Having received titles such as outline editor, head of social media, content director, Joyce is not only passionate about telling the right stories for brands, but also highly strategic. She believes testing, measuring, and refining is the key to any successful marketing. Joyce is also an educator.
Here's what I found on the
She
internet.
is a part-time lecturer for, she's a part-time lecturer for advanced diploma in marketing and brand management at HKU Space. She's helpful, articulate, enthusiastic, and she loves to connect with like-minded individuals from around the world. So Joyce, thank you so much for becoming a member of our tribe. Thank you for sharing your story. It's always an honor to meet young women who are stepping forward in this space to bring their knowledge and their skills to us. So we're going to learn a lot from Joyce this morning. So here we go. Okay, her video is going to take a few minutes. So Miss Terry, if you are there, you might want to just pop in for a few minutes and say hello to everybody. And maybe not. Terry will be joining us a bit later today. So the video is buffering. It's taking a little while. So in the meantime, I can entertain you all, perhaps with some music from a young woman who has come on board with a theme song for the HerStory movement. Her name is based in California. She wrote a song called She. Absolutely powerful piece of music. She has gifted it to us as the theme song for our movement. And it's an honor for me to be able to share her magical genius, her musical genius with you today. When I first watched this, it felt like she had literally written the song for us. The words, the lyrics really speak to who we are as a movement. So, Crystal, thank you again for gracing us with your presence and your music.
Take the song and make it your own.
Let's give that another try. There we go.
Woman who won't go for no. She can be anything that she wants to be. She is powerful, inspirational, giver of life. They can't stop her now. They're worked out. She's brave. She's powerful, inspirational. 'Cause they told her smile was just okay. Deep down inside she finally knew that loving herself she'd find the truth. Maybe in right from her heart, strong from the start, a girl who just couldn't say no. Oh, she's alive. She is powerful, inspiration. No giver of life. They can stop her now with their words of doubt. She's brave. She's she is powerful, inspirational. Give her a love. She is powerful, inspirational. Give her a love. I'll be anything that she wants to be. She's inspirational. Give her a love. They can't stop her now. If there was a doubt, she is brave. She is powerful, inspirational. Give her a someone who owns their own. In tough times when she stands alone. Brave bird that flies with love by
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we are having technical issues today. I'm going to give it one more try. Give it one more. Looks like everything that can go wrong is going wrong today. Or and hopefully it will come through without any glitches and headaches. Here we go. I see my co-host Terry, you're back. You want to come on and say hello to everybody, Terry?
If you or a loved one spent time near Camp Lejeune,
hello, everyone. I finally found a picture.
Oh my gosh. All right. We'll
Yeah,
go
I'm
to
on a
plan
different
B.
device, so please bear with me. Yeah, I see you're having a little bit of issues with the Wi-Fi. I was listening in. Can you hear me?
Like mentioned right now, I am a content marketer here in Hong Kong.
and I strive to help different entrepreneurs and small medium business owners with their content strategy, as well as educating them the content distribution via social media as well as digital marketing. However, why I'm interested in sharing my story with you all here is because I've also experienced and worn a lot of hats before I actually label myself as a content marketer. So, ever since I was young, I've always been interested in or communicating with different people. And I always find a great pleasure in that because I love connecting with different people as well as those who are like minded. I first actually started out, I was born in Hong Kong, but then later on immigrated to Canada and had my primary school years there. And I remember very vividly
Zip code and see if you're eligible. Green, they'll check
all.
for plans with extra
But
benefits.
then my primary school teacher enrolled me in the English as a second language to express myself. And from there, I started drawing a lot of different pictures, telling stories. And to her surprise, within a year, I was able to speak English quite fluently. Memory of how content or creating stories really helped me personally in my life. Student, I went back to Hong Kong for high school and I was in an international school. And for those of you who know, the international schools in Hong Kong predominantly runs by the IB diploma. Hours of extracurricular activities, which we call CAS, and it's encompassed of a creativity, action, and service hours. At the time, competitions and was likely winning different awards. At the time, I was still very, but I was later on approached by different companies and asking if I wanted to sign on as an artist. At the time, I actually declined the offer because I really wanted to experience university. That was one of my goals. So I declined the offer. And when I was approached to do CAS in order to graduate, I thought maybe I should try something new other than singing. So I followed some classmates and they said, "Hey Joyce, there's dance lessons on offer and we're all going there. Do you want to try and come?" And I said, "Sure, that would be very cool and very interesting." Marked the beginning of me really thinking about what it means to explore and fulfill all of my potentials and test out different abilities and see how far it can take me. And even though it's been a long time ago, from there onwards, what I labeled myself as instead of what I call myself and interest and passion, and they explore those and manifest these into opportunities and potentially building them into career opportunities for themselves. So I continued to draw as a student. I managed to sell a few paintings too, here and there, which was very fun. And I how I'm and how I feel the most comfortable. Because at that time, I've only had 2 years of dance experience, but I went into different dance studios and literally went in and asked for the owner and said if they were hiring any dance instructors.
Now, mind you, I only had 2 years of experience back then. So now that I think about it, I don't know where I had the courage to do so. But the boss then said, okay, well, I don't really know you. Do you have any experience? And I said, no. Well, why don't we do this? If you're able to ask students of your own, so you have to market yourself, find students of your own, come to the studio and take a lesson. Did manage to find new students for myself, get into a dance studio, and started teaching my first lesson. And I think he was quite impressed. So then performances arised, he also hired me and asked me to dance for the company. Now then, I was a student slash a dancer and a dance instructor.
Try. Hey, Terry.
Yes, I see we're having major technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Leaf filter puts an end to that. So how does it work? Leaf filter's three-piece system filters out leaves.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Water flow through freely.
Do we need to replace our gutters?
Okay, it looks like you're frozen. We ask that you please be patient with us. This is Terry Weems speaking, co-host of the Her Story Circle Summit. Thanks, Peace. Glad to know that you can hear me. Gertrude looks like she's frozen, and we must, all of our viewers, please bear with us. She is in Melbourne, Australia, and she's trying to work it out on her end. So please bear with us. I am not at my usual site, so therefore I can't even play music for you today, but it looks like Gertrude's trying to come back in.
With Experian, everyone gets their FICO score free.
Yeah, I'm not hearing her either, Peace.
Download the Experian app now. Attention, did you serve, live, or work in
Okay.
Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, North Carolina between 1953
Peace, can you hear this TV in the background?
During that time has been linked to these serious health problems. If you were exposed and hurt, the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022 may make it possible for you to recover a settlement.
Call us right now. You may be entitled to substantial compensation.
Call 1-800-540-5454. That's 1-800-540-5454.
Okay, I will go to another room. I am visiting my 93-year-old mother, and I was watching TV, so I will change locations to get that TV out. Please bear with us. All of our listeners, please bear with us.
You have both Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay, that's got to be better. Now you shouldn't be able to hear it at all. I'm sure Gertrude is probably trying to get all of the presentations. Oh, she's on the phone. Hold on a second. Okay, this is Terry Weems once again. Gertrude just called and her computer crashed. She's restarting. But in the meantime, I can tell you about my podcast. I am a co author for Sacred Promises and Promise, and that's how Gertrude and I met because she is also a co author. I can tell you that Gertrude knows talent, she sees talent, and she gets you going and doing things. So, what has happened in our relationship is that she has created a podcast for me soon to air. It's called Crossroads, and it's simply empowering women over the age of 50. And I will have people on there be under 50. However, it's those women who have gone through marriage, divorce, empty nesters, um, has suffered an illness, or um, and would like to tell their story at the age of 50, but they just keep on going. Just to fill you in, I am 73 and I am still active, as you can see. And the reason that I am off screen is because today was a golf day for me. I still golf. And so she has decided that I need to be on to tell my story. And we're going to do that in the form of a podcast while I listen to all other stories from all women. So if at any time you would like to be on my podcast, all you have to do is simply send either Gertrude or myself an email. And my email is crossroads. Oh, wait a minute. Let me just give you my regular email. WEEMS, S as in Sam, TMZ25 at gmail.com. You can reach me. We can have a virtual coffee, and I can get you interviewed for my upcoming podcast. And my co host is back. Hello, Gertrude. Uh oh. Is she frozen again? Uh-oh. Well, I guess I'll continue to talk until she's able to come back in. So, um, I started writing as a co-author for Sacred Promise of Dr. Terai Trent. And I took a little snippet from a book that I had started writing to almost 3 years ago entitled I Am Your Sister. So the snippet that I took out had to do with becoming a friend. During my writing, I discovered that not everybody is your friend. Of course, I knew that, but it was a very, very close friend of mine who I discovered was no longer as close as I thought we had been. So therefore, what I did, was to reflect on my past, how I got here, how I got to that point, and how I needed to reconcile with her. So it revealed quite a few things, and I reconciled with her because normally, um, when people, when we don't jive or match, usually I just close the circle and move on to someone else. However, it was very difficult for me to do that. So I continued to write in I Am Your Sister after I did that snippet. And hopefully that book will be out by the end of the year 2022. So I have become a member of Gertrude's Tribe. And so, therefore, I am usually on her podcast as a panelist. She also will be co hosting my podcast as well. So, I want to thank you guys if you're still tuned in to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. You will get a speaker who just has her picture up because, like I said, I am still in my golf so called uniform, hat on my head, no makeup, and everything else. So we try to keep it real on Her Story Circle as well as we will on the crossroads. We all have had crossroads in our lives. We all have to decide which road to take in our lives. So please feel free to contact me. A virtual coffee is just an interview for us to get to know one another. And then we'll set a recording date and you will tell your story. Okay, she was back for a minute, but she froze and she has asked me to stay here. So evidently I must have the gift of gab. um, Never thought I would be doing this on a broadcast. Yes, I can talk because I used to be sort of an introverted type person when I was growing up, being the only girl in the family of two brothers. I had to learn to be a sister because I had no sisters. And my book will divulge all of that. And sometimes, ladies, we know it's hard to get to know one another because we have been taught that we should not divulge all of our information about us or talk to people. But now and now we're doing more and more of that, uh, and not being ashamed of those things that we've gone through, and also telling the joys in our lives. Okay. Peace. Give me a topic to talk about. Peace Shante, it has joined us, has been with us, as far as I can tell. So I am patiently waiting. Those of you that are just joining us, my screen is not frozen. It is a picture. It is a picture at this time because I am not camera ready. We do have some exciting speakers, but you know that electronics devices work well when they work. And she's
Okay.
back. Okay. I have talked about many things. Wait till you view this recording.
I had to change my physical location.
Okay, you're frozen. Okay, you're back.
All right, so we're going to give it another try. I'm really not sure what has happened with my Wi-Fi connection. So I have changed locations and hopefully where I am now, the connection will be better. So please bear with me, everybody. We're going to try and play that video again from Joyce and see if we are in business or not today. That's the thing with technology. We've had 3 straight days of perfect internet, everything working to perfection. And then we wake up today and everything is different. So here we go.
Like mentioned, right now I am a
Welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi there. Thank you, Gertrude, for the introduction. My name is Joyce. I am based here in Hong Kong. I'm a content marketer, and right now I'm 33 years old. So it's my pleasure to be here to share with you all a bit about myself as well as my story. Like mentioned, right now I am a content marketer here in Hong Kong, and I strive to help different entrepreneurs and small medium business owners with their content strategy, as well as educating them the content distribution via social media as well as digital marketing. However, why I'm interested in sharing my story with you all here is because I've also experienced and worn a lot of hats before I actually label myself as a content marketer. So, ever since I was young, I've always been interested in telling stories, whether through drawing or communicating with different people. And I always find a great pleasure in that because I love connecting with different people as well as those who are like minded. So, when I first actually started out, I was born in Hong Kong, but then later on immigrated to Canada and had my primary school years there. And I remember very vividly that I was unable to speak any English at all. But then my primary school teacher enrolled me in the English as a second language course, where she let me just freely express myself. And from there, I started drawing a lot of different pictures, telling stories. And to her surprise, within a year, I was able to speak English quite fluently. And I take that as a very vivid memory of how content or creating stories really helped me personally in my life. So from there onwards, I studied as a student. I went back to Hong Kong for high school, and I was in an international school. And for those of you who know, the international schools in Hong Kong predominantly runs by the IB diploma, which is the same curriculum in the UK. In order to graduate back then, we had to dedicate ourselves hours of extracurricular activities, which we call CAS, and it's encompassed of creativity, action, and service hours. At the time, I was actually singing as a hobby, but I also competed at different competitions and was likely winning different awards. At the time, I was still very young, so I treated it more as an interest. But I was later on approached by different companies and asking if I wanted to sign on as an artist. At the time, I actually declined the offer because I really wanted to experience university. That was one of my goals. So I declined the offer. And when I was approached to do CAS in order to graduate, I thought maybe I should try something new other than singing. So I followed some classmates, and they said, "Hey Joyce, there's dance lessons on offer, and we're all going there. Do you want to try and come?" And I said, "Sure, that would be very cool and very interesting." And in the high school years, that's when I first came in contact with dancing, and specifically hip hop and street dancing. And I took my first lesson, didn't think much about it, but then I was instantly hooked. And from there on, it actually kickstarted my decade-long of career as a dance instructor as well as a professional dancer here in Hong Kong. Now, that actually marked the beginning of me really thinking about what it means to explore and fulfill all of my potentials and test out different abilities and see how far it can take me. And even though it's been a long time ago, from there onwards, what I labeled myself as, instead of what I call myself right now as a content marketer, is what we call a slasher. So that means it's an individual who has a lot of different interest and passion, and they explore those and manifest these into opportunities and potentially building them into career opportunities for themselves. So I started off dancing, and then I graduated high school and went on to university, where I was back in Canada in the University of British Columbia under the BA of Visual Arts. So I continued to draw as a student. I managed to sell a few paintings too, here and there, which was very fun. And I continued to dance. And I think that was when it really marked my personality as well, where I really recognized how I'm like and how I feel the most comfortable. 2 years of dance experience, but I was really ambitious and really wanted to, like mentioned, test out all of my abilities and see how far I can go. So I went into different dance studios and literally just went in and asked for the owner and said if they were hiring any dance instructors. Now, mind you, I only had 2 years of experience back then. So I did. Now that I think about it, I don't know where I had the courage to do so. But the boss then said, "Okay, well, I don't really know you. Do you have any experience?" I said, "No." And he said, "Okay, well, why don't we do this? If you're able to ask students of your own, so you have to market yourself, find students of your own, come to the studio and take a lesson with you, and let me see how you are like as a dance instructor." So I got on, and I took that as a challenge. And at the end, I did manage to find new students for myself, get into a dance studio, and started teaching my first lesson. And I think he was quite impressed. So then Ford, he actually hired me as a dance instructor for the studio. And when different performances arose, he also hired me and asked me to dance for the company. Now then, I was a student slash a dancer and a dance instructor. And that continued throughout my university years. Uh, and after I graduated, I decided to go back to Hong Kong and continue. Now, once I graduated, I could have find a job that's more related to my BA in visual arts, but that proved to be a struggle. That was very challenging in Hong Kong. Visual arts was still a kind of a niche program in Hong Kong, and there wasn't a lot of people who had jobs that required my expertise and my knowledge back then in visual arts, art history, so on and so forth. So I continued to dance, teach, and set myself the goal that in Hong Kong, I would want to be able to perform on, at the time, the largest stage, which is the Hong Kong Hong Kong Coliseum. And then I strived for that goal. But at the same time, I was struggling to survive. I needed to have enough income to support myself as well as hopefully, support my family as well. So then I had to come up with other opportunities, and I started looking through job search websites and tried to match my capabilities with opportunities out there. And I ended up finding a role, which was a writing role in an online street fashion and culture magazine. I sent my CV, I went for the interview, everything went well. But the interviewer said, "Joyce, we really like you as a person and your personality, your background. You're very creative, but you don't have any experience. So sadly, we cannot hire you." Now, up to this point, if you remember my first example of how I just stomped in the dance studio, I didn't treat that as a no. So I saw that as an opportunity instead. And overnight, I started my own website, which is an arts and culture website called stuffs.com. And I started writing on my own. I started creating my own experiences, doing my own articles, and I started sending those articles to the HR department of that company. And over around 2 months or so, they said, "Okay, Joyce, you're very persistent, and we see that you have grown throughout the hiring process, and we're happy to give you the job." So I actually got the job there. And then I became the writer slash dancer person in this company. Now, fast forward, after that, I actually went on to several different roles, including becoming a reporter, an editor, and then working in-house as a social media manager, creating viral videos, and ultimately landing me as the content director for a advertising agency. During that time, throughout all of these full-time jobs, I continued to dance. And luckily, I actually managed to achieve my goal of stepping on that stage, the Hong Kong Coliseum, as a dancer. For me, it really made a lot of sense. However, it was not easy. All of these things that I wanted to do were driven by my passion, but at the same time, also, I had to work very hard for it. And at the time, there was a rise of social media, the internet, and I realized that if I were to want to attract all these opportunities in order to pursue all of my passion, I had to tell people about myself. And that's where it really landed me here, where I really believe in the impact of content creation. Not so much as to brag or promote yourself in such a way, but to really express yourself through the content that you create online. And it really does attract other like-minded individuals to remember you or recall you when any opportunities arise. So then again, after that, and during those years, around 7 to 8 years of my professional career, I was able to tell people that I was a video producer slash dancer slash dance instructor slash editor, reporter, so on and so forth. And it was definitely a lot of fun. It felt like I was living 3 lives at the same time, condensing all of the experiences I could have had in just a matter of several years. Now that I've experienced all of these different things, I really understood what I was very good at and what had the most demand and what I was able to offer as the biggest value to other people in the community. Hence, I resulted in becoming a content marketer and started my own company called Joyce and Content Marketing. The goal of this whole company is really to share not just the expertise and the insights of content marketing and the glitz and glams of online marketing, digital marketing, and so forth, but my goal is really to hope and educate different people, especially entrepreneurs, or even what I label myself as still a slasher, and other small, medium business owners, the importance and the interest and the passionate part of really telling your story well with content. It's not just about driving sales and acquiring leads, and obviously those are very important too. But being able to craft your own story and present it to different people online is a very important and valuable life skill. And from what I see right now is there are many people, not just within my age range, but even those who are approaching retirement or still in high school. They're looking for different options in life and hopefully trying to explore their full potential. And me starting my business is really hoping to be that person there for them, to let them know they're not alone. And whatever I've been able to achieve in the past almost a decade now is something that they can take reference, they can maybe learn from my mistakes, and they can foster and pursue their passion and manifest them into different opportunities themselves. So for me, this is in just my story of how I've actually ended up as a content marketer, as well as a slasher and an educator that's hopefully going to inspire different people to explore their passion and leave a mark in the world with content.
Wow. What an amazing story. And the timing of you stepping into the space was just picture perfect. Right now, people are looking for opportunities to make a living from home. They're looking for opportunities to harness the power of social media. So if there was an entrepreneur who is listening to us right now, they've just started out, have no clue where to start. It's overwhelming because there's so many different platforms that you can broadcast yourself. Give us 3 nuggets of wisdom or 3 steps that one should take to get started.
For sure. I think the first step that you must be very clear on is what we call your personal branding. Now, let's not get caught up with all the very complex or difficult to understand marketing terms. But in my definition, very short and very concise, personal branding is really who you want to present yourself as and who you are. So when a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start their businesses, they might get confused and think immediate about what is in demand, what can I supply, what can earn me the most money. Those are still consideration factors of you to consider when you start your business. But the first step is definitely to really consolidate and solidify what your personal branding is. And all of that definitely comes from your personality. So, from myself, when I talk to other people, they often say, "Hey, Joyce, you sound so passionate about what you do, and you're very good at simplifying complicated concepts." Now, I really held on to that and I incorporated that into what I call my own personal branding. I make sure that every single piece of content or every person that I come in contact with, they feel that as well. Wow, Joyce is very passionate and is good at simplifying different and complicated concepts. So that would be the first step that I suggest. Really lock down your personal branding, what you're able to offer, despite of what the market seems like they want. There's definitely going to be people who resonate with what you have on offer. So don't just follow trends. Be who you are and stay authentic. Now, the second thing is to understand your target audiences. Now, again, let's not get too technical about this here, but one of the things that I often tell my mentees, so I host mentorship programs as well for entrepreneurs and slashers who are hoping to start their own business or are struggling with their own businesses. The simple question that I ask them most of the time is, if you were to describe and imagine your perfect best friend, how would he or she be like? Are they somebody who's open-minded? Are they somebody who can give you very straightforward criticisms? Are they somebody who is very friendly? Are they somebody who loves the outdoor, extroverted, introverted? Come up with a list of people that you think is the perfect fit with you. And at the end of the list, most of the time, what you would find is that actually builds a persona of the target audience that you want to and be reaching out to. So, of course, there's a technical way of doing a lot of market research and doing a lot of different online research to find these behaviors. But the easiest way for an entrepreneur to start off is imagine that. Who would be your perfect best friend? How would they be like? And use those qualities to identify and build your target audience persona. Now, the third thing is to align those two. So, your personal branding, who you are, what you stand for, and your target audience persona, how are these people that you want to attract are like? And then categorize them and align them and find out what content best fit them. So, for an example, let's just say you're like me, somebody who's very passionate, somebody who loves teaching other people, sharing ideas, and the best friend persona that you identified is somebody who is not very concentrated or focused on just driving revenue and profit, but somebody who truly wants to explore their full potential and learn. Now, in that sense, it would become very straightforward and very natural to create content that's revolving around those ideas, right? Creating content that tells people about how to explore your full potential, what experiences you have had when you have struggled with pursuing different passions, what is the behind the scenes of your success or of your failures, of your achievements and struggles, and use those content to attract these people that you have identified. So it's really about identifying your personal branding, your target audience persona, and trying to align them together to figure out what content you should produce for them. And the last tip within these 3 steps is stay true to that strategy. Don't get carried over and think, oh, right now people are getting very famous and popular in making simple tutorials or reaction videos. Maybe I should do all of that stuff. There's no way for us to do every single thing. You can explore with formats. However, your subject matter and the idea and the concept of your content should stay true to what we've just mentioned. And that should clear up a lot of confusion and make you start off on a better foot when it comes to creating content online.
Fantastic. Very, very practical solutions there. Now, Everybody wants to get a video to go viral. What is the formula to viral videos? What makes these videos spread throughout the internet? How can one start in putting together a video that can go viral?
Now, viral videos, back in my day when I was still working as a video producer, there's definitely a formula to it. Now, considering algorithms, platforms, behaviors have all changed so much in the recent years, what I can offer are patterns and frameworks and ideas for you to brainstorm concepts for your video in hopes that they might go viral. Now, the first thing that most people kind of oversee is you have to have a healthy account. So a lot of people believe I can just create a piece of content, a video, I'll get it out in the world and it'll be well received as long as it's good quality, as long as it resonates with people. However, most people forget that it's being hosted on a channel or a platform that you do not own. So you actually have to know how to play the game well first. For example, if you're trying to get a video viral on YouTube, you really need to make sure your YouTube account is healthy in the sense that all of your bios are well put together, your links that you want people to land on are there, you have your banner images, your thumbnails are well thought out, you have all the alt text and the descriptions and the titles that make sense on that platform so that that platform also recognizes your content. That's definitely the first step in creating even any sort of content, despite the goal of it being viral or not, a healthy account. Second thing, when it comes to creating or wanting to create a viral video, you must understand very, very well the user and the target audience you're trying to get at. The easier way to get viral is honestly find your niche. Don't try and cater to every single person out there. Find that niche of people. Let's just imagine it being 100 people that are very, very, very relevant to the content that you're producing. Now, for example, for myself, let's just say I'm somebody who studied abroad, but I would label myself as still a Hong Konger. I'm from Hong Kong, right? So my experiences as a student abroad, somebody who specifically went to Canada, somebody who came back to Hong Kong to work, that's what that sort of specificality would be definitely very important for me to include in my content if I were to want to target a niche. Instead of just thinking about, oh, somebody who studied abroad might not be from Hong Kong, try and zoom in and figure out what that 100 people would be that would highly resonate with the content and the value you have to offer through video. Because once you hit those 100 people and they feel like, wow, you're speaking their language and you completely understand what they're looking for online, specifically on that platform, let's just say YouTube, then it's very likely they will share that video with their friends. They will share it on their own social media platform. That is actually the key of getting video content viral, not just being the first reach to the audience, but being reposted and shared amongst different communities, different groups, and then getting the word out there. So that would be my second tip. The third and the final tip of getting a video viral, apart from being a niche, is really to simplify. Many people think very complicated when they think about a video. It has to be shot in a professional studio. It has to be perfectly lit. Who is going to write the script? Who is going to be featured? This and that. But the most important thing actually is what we call in marketing a scalability. If you're able to make your video very simple, highly resonant to your niche, and follows the best practices of a platform, it should be very simple, easy to execute, easy to scale. As you can tell here on TikTok or on Reels, you see all these content creators pumping out heaps of content that follows a similar sequence or a similar formula based on what they're trying to say. Now, imagine if it was going to be super complicated, they're not going to be able to upkeep that and be frequently and consistently apparent on the platform. So it's really about simplifying it, just focusing on those points and making sure that your video can be scaled so that consistency helps you drive more reach and over time people might come back to your video and make it viral. It doesn't have to be I release it now, it gets viral right now. What you see right now is a lot of viral videos. They've been built for years. They just hit that jackpot and people went back to it and found out more, found more. And that's where it builds that credibility and trust in your piece of content, so that ensures the longevity of your content performance. So those are some of my tips when it comes to attacking viral videos.
Absolutely fascinating. Now, as you know, the Her Story movement is a social impact movement. We like to inspire women to make a difference in the world in small ways. What is your social impact project? Do you have anything that you support? And why do you support it?
Yes, I've been privileged to have been referred by different entrepreneurs in my community to different NGOs, and to share my experience as an entrepreneur with different high school students here in Hong Kong, specifically Form 4, what we called our grading systems here, and above. So they're 2 years away from their main exam before they enter university, where they're still perhaps figuring out what they have their true passion in, what they want to do and dedicate their life into, or what they want to study after they leave high school. There are several different NGOs and different social enterprises that I work with, and volunteer to go to different high schools and share my experience or answer different questions that these high school youngsters have when it comes to career planning, interviewing, looking for a job, or even specifically those who are interested in marketing, digital marketing, social media marketing, and content marketing. Now, one very specific example, and the one that's most memorable for me, is the association, the NGO that I work with quite a bit, called the Cocoon Foundation, here in Hong Kong. They have different modules that they provide for different high school students, where they guide them through the importance of an entrepreneurial mindset. So it's not just about starting your own business, but being able to have that sense of, there is an option for me to create something that I have a passion in as well. I don't have to just work for somebody, or I don't have to just conform to different common working requirements here, but I'm able to exercise my abilities and my passion and to see what I can start myself. Now, that foundation has been um, highly interesting for me, because I was able to be in touch with a lot of different, very amazing young people here in Hong Kong, and I've constantly being amazed by how dedicated they are in trying to do things that expresses their own passion. So, for example, some of them have countless roles already just as a high school student, being the committee member, leadership, group leaders. They started different associations or communities where they bond with different youngsters, perhaps under activities that they like. Or some of them have even started their own e-shops and started selling their own products, designing their own items and selling them on Instagram or on Facebook or on other different platforms. And what I can tell from those experiences is that they know what they want to do. They are very sure. They have the grit. They have the mentality. They have the thinking. All they're lacking is somebody to guide them, or at least someone to, like I mentioned earlier on when I shared my story, to make them feel less alone, so that they don't feel like they're on this just by themselves. And if they make a mistake, then they have to struggle through it all by themselves. And this is kind of the social impact that I am very invested in supporting. I really want to be a role model, or at least some sort of figure, like a friend or a partner, for these young people here in Hong Kong, regardless of their background. They could be studying in a local school, an international school, whatever it is, from even from different countries, if they're minorities here in Hong Kong, or Chinese people, what it is, to have them understand that, oh, somebody else has gone through it and challenged the norm, did a lot of different things, wore a lot of hats, set different objectives and goals, and at the end of the day achieved it, but
Yeah.
with hard work. Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love it. So let me end now with one final question. If time was an illusion and I could take you into the future, you're now 100 years old, you're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your dogs, your cats, your children, your great grandchildren, and you're reflecting back on your life.
Mhm.
And I could teleport you to have a conversation with that 100-year-old you. Based on how you're living your life, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you to that point?
That's a very good question. I've actually never been asked such a question, but the first thing that comes to my mind is this conversation I had with my father just right before he passed away. He asked me, Joyce, you can do whatever you want in life, but the one thing I really want you to ponder and think about is what is it that you are sure you're able to achieve as the top 5% within that career, that industry? Are you sure you're able to offer the most value if you're going to dedicate your work in that industry? Now, as I mentioned before, I was a dancer and I really enjoyed it. But to be very honest, I immediately knew I wasn't going to be that person within the 5% top realm of dancers. I've seen so many other dancers who work double, triple, just a lot more harder than I do. I treat it as a fun thing, and I'm happy that it has earned me a lot of different experiences and a good amount of income. But I knew that wasn't me. So that's why I tried so many different careers just to find that 5%. Where can I, Joy Sang, be able to offer the most value to those different people with the skills I have? And it ended up being content marketing, or so at least what I think right now. Maybe my 100-year-old self would disagree. There's maybe other stuff that I would do later on in my older years, but right now this is what I think is the realm of knowledge that I can offer the most. So then I would really want to say to my 100-year-old self, did I get it right? Is this my top 5% of being able to offer the most value? Because this is my life goal. I really want to find out what it is that it can place me in the top 5% of all these people who are all trying their best to do and offer their value there. But I'm somebody who was in the top 5. People will remember Joy Sang did a lot to offer different youngsters or people on the knowledge of content marketing.
Fantastic. Joyce, it's been such a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you for all of the nuggets of wisdom, the knowledge that you bring and you share with the world. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. We are attracting some really smart, phenomenal young women who are sharing how to harness social media, how to use the internet effectively. So if you need help, get in touch with Joyce. Her website is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Go onto her website, get in touch with her, and don't try and reinvent the wheel. Learn from somebody who's done it before, who knows how to help you do it the smart way. Thank you again, Joyce. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we're back in business, Terry.
Yes, it does.
It was a
Oh
bit touch
my,
and go this morning. Technology is great when it works. When it doesn't, it can be a disaster.
it can. But we persevered. We're on. Thank you to everyone that listened to my jibber jabber and got to know a little bit about me.
People were patiently waiting, so that was really good. So, who do we have next, Terry, this morning?
I believe we have Beth Gibbs.
Okay, if you go ahead and read her bio, I will line up her video.
Okay. Beth is a certified yoga therapist through the International Association of Yoga Therapists and a faculty member at the Kripalu School of Integrative Yoga Therapy. She holds a master's degree in yoga therapy and mind-body health from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. After years of working for media, higher education, and nonprofit organizations, Beth is a speaker, teacher, and a self-awareness trainer who uses her energy and sense of humor to inspire, inform, and entertain. Beth has over 20 years experience teaching, training, and mentoring yoga students, teachers, and yoga therapists in training from all over the world to implement mindfulness and self-awareness skills in their professional work and personal practice. She writes mainstream fiction and personal growth nonfiction. She is an award-winning author and writes for several health and wellness blogs. She also has published a personal growth book entitled Enlightened Up: Finding Clarity, Contentment, and Resilience in a Complicated World, in addition to a children's book, Oogie Boogie, The Elephant Yogi. I like that. Her personal blog can be found at www.bethgibbs.com. Beth, we thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
When I was 37 years old, divorced, a single parent with a full-time job in broadcasting, and 21 credits towards a master's degree in communications. So if you can picture that with the caption, middle class, African-American woman, feminist, humanist, tries to do it all and prove herself competent, capable, authentic, and enough to be a credit to the race. Now that is a heavy burden, and it weighed heavily on me. The cues I was getting from society and my family fed the directive to do it all. But inside, I felt crazy. Beneath my struggling and juggling, I was constipated and stressed. I developed TMJ, a condition where my jaws get tight and lock, and that was not fun. There just was not enough time, not enough energy, not enough of me to go around and to do all that was expected of me and all that I expected of myself. I felt like I was being ripped in half, and I needed to find an answer to the question, what does it mean to be enough, to do enough, and to have enough? Now, the have enough part of the question was first on my list because I've always thought that it's very hard, difficult, and maybe even impossible to imagine being concerned with doing enough or being enough until the basic needs of life have been met. You know, having water, food, clothing, safety, and shelter. So how much of those things are enough? Well, I always knew that that would vary from person to person, but thankfully, having enough was not an issue for me. I was raised in a middle-class family in a small New England town in the eastern United States. And in any other place, we might have been considered working class because my dad was a janitor. My mom was a secretary. But because of the work ethic of my family in earlier generations, we owned our home free and clear with no mortgage. And sometimes you just know something in your bones, and that's how I felt about having enough. Now, I have never worried about having the newest, shiniest, latest anything. But as a kid, and still as an adult, I do want things. As a kid, I wanted a chemistry set so I could make baking soda and vinegar bombs. As a young adult, I wanted the latest kitchen appliance, a new car, or that perfect little black dress, which I never found, by the way. But I never had that clutching feeling in my chest that if I didn't have or couldn't find the things I wanted, I'd be crushed. So I lived life with the feeling of having enough as an internal foundation, thankfully built by mom and my dad. Then the do enough question kicked in. And this was a tough one because I am a recovering perfectionist. And by the mid 1990s, I found myself in an unhappy second marriage. Marriage counseling failed when my husband, that's what I call former husband, refused to continue. So I spilled my sad story in run on sentences and heavy paragraphs to my no nonsense, down to earth social psychologist. And she listened. And then she told me in no uncertain terms that I was a perfectionist. And not only a perfectionist with codependency issues. And I would have to deal with that before we could even talk about the marriage. So you can imagine, my mouth dropped open. I didn't believe her. So I checked out a few books from the library and discovered that she was right. I realized that I was the one doing most of the judging and shooting on myself and others, and I had to admit it. I am a perfectionist, and I was closer to the edge of maladaptive perfectionism than I was comfortable with. And that brand of perfectionism with codependency issues was exhausting because it took many units of mental and physical energy to keep up that perfect persona. But what helped me move toward recovery was the wish to recover, the strength to take on the task, and very important, a sense of humor to help me through. Because I knew that if I didn't find a way out or find a way to laugh myself out, I would drown in an ocean of tears. And that would not be a good look for someone striving to be perfect in all things. So slowly I came to the realization that I needed to face life, work, and family from a place of balance and health, while at the same time maintaining a realistic personal standard of excellence that was balanced and had boundaries. It's a process, like everything else, and I'm still working on it. But once I was able to get some clarity around my issues and start to consciously address them, I discovered that the energetic intensity of my perfectionism decreased. And about the same time that I began to deal with doing enough, I came to grips with the being enough question. And I figured out that if I could recognize or create some kind of internal sense of contentment, not happiness, contentment, because there is a difference in my mind, a big important difference, I would be able to manage that existential angst and be enough, at least to myself. Now, some people find self-esteem and actualization in church, and some in the creative process, and some in sports. I found my helpful answer in my training as a yoga teacher. And what turned the tide for me was this kind of amazing psychological and philosophical model from a 3,000-year-old wisdom tradition from India. And it's called, in plain down to earth English, the 5 layers of self-awareness. Now, this model, in short, simply blew my mind because it proposes that we are much more than a mind interacting with a body. So understanding myself through 5 layers instead of 2, the more well-known mind-body model that we have in the West here, gave me a 360-degree view of what it means to be human. So I need to tell you what those 5 layers are in brief. Layer 1, physical, my body, my environment, me, my size, shape, gender, race, anatomy, physiology, my home, and the environment, my home and the earth that we all live on. Layer 2, energetic, my breath and my energy levels. And I needed to know what those were, to tune into them, along with the understanding of how they work together to animate me and help me navigate all that life brings, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly. Layer 3, mind, my thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. It's how I think, what I think about, what I believe, and how I experience and express myself. 4th layer, intuitive wisdom. This is my ability to observe and understand the how and the why I got to where I am now, and how I can consciously make or consciously not make wise choices. And if choices and changes are not available to me for some reason, then how can I find some kind of peace of mind and acceptance for what is? Layer 5, that's bliss. This is a connection to something larger than myself. And for anyone, it could be spiritual, religious, a deep connection to a healthy passion, or to the natural world. For me, it was finding positive ways to express myself creatively. And all this came after the age of 50. It's important to know. And because mental pictures and stories help me with understanding big ideas, I created an analogy so I could visualize this in my head. And I call it my shit sugar wheel. So I imagine my life as a wheel that steadily turns. And half of the rim is coated with sugar. And that's everything that makes me happy, excited, upbeat, and feeling good, the ups. The other half is coated with, shit. And it's everything that leaves me feeling scared and empty and sad and suffering, what I call and what everybody calls the downs. And since the wheel of my life is constantly turning, I figured out that if I stayed on that rim, I would have no choice but to go round and round and round from sugar to shit and back again over and over and over. So my wheel has 5 spokes, the 5 layers of self-awareness. And that hub of the wheel is where I could find that contentment I was seeking. And the trick to use the spokes wisely, to move my thinking and my consciousness from the rim to the hub, where there I would be able to watch that wheel go round and round, but with a little bit of conscious detachment, not apathy, detachment, the ability to witness and watch. Then I would be able to make those better decisions on how to respond, not to react with fear or resistance or just aversion and wanting to run away, but to respond with a certain amount of self-awareness and resilience and practicality for what I was facing. And this way, the highs, because we all have highs, they're still wonderful. And the lows are still painful. But from the hub of the wheel, looking out with that little bit of detachment, I know that both are temporary. So in this way, I learned to be concerned, but not consumed by them. And with this level of self-awareness operating 24/7, I have found the balance and contentment I was looking for. Well, most of the time, it's a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, but we can begin this at any age of life. So over time, I enlightened up a few degrees. I got that I could not do it all without risking my health and my sanity. I gave up my business suits and my heels, along with several committee and board positions, that whole corporate thing. And I watched external validation from a number of people and organizations just simply melt away like cold butter on a hot summer sidewalk. Did I need that validation anymore? Question I asked myself. Could I be a credit to the human race on my own terms and in my own voice? And the answer I came to was hell yes. So when I look back, I realize that it took 37 years for the threads of external directives, striving, and feeling not enough and not doing enough to tie themselves into knots big enough for me to feel and to disrupt my life. So does it matter that it took another 41 years to untie those knots and let the threads dissolve? Nope. Because in the end, the only thing that matters is that I have found the discipline to work through those knots moment by moment, bit by bit, and thread by thread. And today, I'm a lot better at managing stress. I have gotten pretty resilient. I haven't been constipated in years. And my TMJ bite plate sits unused on the top shelf of the medicine cabinet, except sometimes when, because we all have those times when things are really stressful, I might need to put that in for a few nights. At least that's what my dentist says. So I follow her orders. And I rejoice that in the fact that underneath the African, underneath the American, and underneath the woman slash feminist slash humanist is a being who can occasionally and surprisingly be here now. And in those moments, I can rest amidst the chaos and be present in my life with its problems and joys. I'm confident, capable, authentic, and that is enough, my friends.
What an incredible story. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
You know, just listening to you speak, you sound like one of those women who figured it out and has it together. A lot
Most of the time.
we are struggling to find that balance, to find that center, that hub that you found with the five
Yes.
spokes.
Yes.
Now, tell us the difference between happiness and contentment in your definition.
In my definition, I think of happiness is momentary excitement. A check comes in the mail. You won a contest. You wrote a book and an agent says, I'll buy it. They say, yes. But that can be short-lived, because in the next moment, you can get a phone call from a member of your family that there's a crisis, or you can be diagnosed with an illness, or something terrible could happen. You could find yourself in the middle of a war or find yourself attacked. And in order to get through those other things that happen in life, contentment lasts a little bit longer. It's more a feeling a feeling of resilience and leveling, basically being able to look at the highs and the lows from the hub of the wheel with that little bit of detachment. So it doesn't mean you don't get excited when something wonderful happens. You do. And it doesn't mean you don't feel horrible when something bad happens, because you are. But the key is to use that intuitive witness, that ability to watch things from that hub that kind of takes the edge off a little bit and allows you to say, okay, things are not great right now, but I can find an inner peace and inner contentment. And when the happiness, when the excitement comes along, fine, I will enjoy that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I have to be able to manage my life on things that are a little more level instead of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I need to find that middle ground.
Oh, I love it. I'm at that point where I'm trying to find that level. You know, my life has been a bit of a roller coaster ride over the last 10 to 15 years. So if there is a woman who is listening to us right now, she's struggling. If you could go back to the younger you, that young woman who was just on that treadmill, doing, giving, going nonstop. If you could go back and give yourself 3 pieces of advice based on what life has taught you, what would that be?
First thing I would do is understand, though, that model that I learned during my yoga training. And of course, when I learned it, it was all in Sanskrit and deep philosophical language. And I needed to be able to share that information with my yoga students in plain English, like I would tell my own younger self. So that's why I wrote my book, Enlighten Up, Finding Clarity, Contentment, and Resilience in a Complicated World, in plain English. So I could understand it and give that to my younger self and give that to my students. So that would be first. Second, I would definitely say find some kind of way to exercise, whether you're completely able, whether you're sitting in a wheelchair, there's some kind of exercise you can do. And when you can't physically do it, You can visualize it in your mind. A guy named Matthew Sanford was in an automobile accident at age of 11, paraplegic. He is now a yoga teacher because he figured out how to use visualization to help him move whatever parts of his body that he could move. And the third thing I would recommend is find a creative outlet, whether it's writing, knitting, crafting, something, because we all have a creative spark. We need to find a way to get that out because that can get you through a lot of tough times. Did you say 3 pieces or 4 pieces?
3 pieces. No, you are right on the button. That is absolutely wonderful. And something does happen when you move physically in terms of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you're doing craft, I crochet, I knit, I almost space out and don't think when I'm doing that.
Yes.
And the only time I can actually meditate is when I'm walking. Some people need to still to meditate. I need to walk. I need to walk a distance until I hear my heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Then I really tune in and go inward. So
exactly.
Meditation doesn't necessarily have to be you sitting still.
No. And what I've learned is there are only 2 rules for meditation. And I really tell this to my students. You want to have your back comfortably straight. So that means you could lie down in bed and meditate. As long as your back is comfortably straight and you're able to remain awake and aware, whatever you're doing, you can meditate while you're washing dishes. So walking meditation is a definite thing. Absolutely.
That is fantastic. Now, let me take you to your older self.
Mm-hmm.
You're now 120 years old. And the way you're going to live to 140, especially with all this yoga.
Uh-huh.
You could teleport into the future
mm-hmm.
and have a conversation with the older you. You're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, whatever it's going to be. And you could talk to this wise woman who has led you to that point.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to her based on how you've lived your life?
The first thing I would say is thank you. I am grateful to have been your companion on this amazing ride through life. And so I'd say thank you for that. I would also say, and this takes a little bit longer, but I would also thank her for the way in which she has aged, even with the gray hair and the wrinkles, because that doesn't necessarily change what's going on inside. So I would thank her for making the distinction between what's going on the outside and what's going on the inside. And the third thing I would say to her is, make sure that you have your mind resting in the hub of that wheel when you transition off this planet for the last time. Just go peacefully. That's what I would say.
I love it. I love asking that question because a lot of women don't realize that we are born with all the wisdom we need. We have all the answers to all of our problems. And sometimes I go into meditation and I tune into the future me and I ask her, what is our next step?
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to do next?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it comes through my dreams, these little knowings, these little cryptic messages. Or I will bump into someone the next day and I'm talking about what I'm struggling with and they'll say something and there's a chain of events that happens with that.
Yes.
So we have all the answers, ladies. You have everything you need to solve every problem in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's go now to your spirit of giving.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to give back in your life, in your business?
Mm-hmm. I do 2 things. During the month of December, which in the United States is Christmas, I make a list of organizations that I choose to support. And I write generous checks to them. Most of those organizations have to do with making sure people are fed, have those basic things in life, places and organizations that help shelter people, feed people, and keep people safe. Organizations that are aligned with the idea and the concept of raising healthy, resilient children, because that's very important to me. So I do that in December. And when I retired from my last paid job, I decided to set up a foundation at our local Foundation for Public Giving, a donor advised fund, because I wanted to find ways to do that a little more frequently. So I set up this donor advised fund to honor my parents. It's called the Garnett Gibbs Family Fund. And depending upon how the market's doing, I will make a regular contribution, a good chunk of a contribution to an organization in my area that I feel is doing something along the lines of healthy choices. And so for right now, I'm supporting a summer yoga program for inner city kids who right now are feeling a lot of stress because of all the not being in school. And it's so interesting because the kids will feed back their experiences, and they will say things like, when I'm in yoga club, I feel like I'm part of the universe, or this is the only place where I can feel and relax and be myself because it's not comfortable sometimes to be at home. So I know that that's an important service, and I know that the kids are learning to be they're learning specific techniques on how they can energize themselves when they need to have more energy, how they can relax and calm themselves when they're angry, upset, or anxious, how they learn to cooperate because they did not understand the meaning of that word when we got started, and then how they can focus so that when they're in school and doing schoolwork, they get a little more focus and concentration on how to tune into what they're doing in the moment. So those are the ways that I'm giving back.
Fantastic. Was there anything I should have asked you and I didn't?
Well, let me see. You could have asked me about my two books. The first book I self-published is called Ogie Bogie, the Elephant Yogi, and it is based on the curriculum that I developed for that summer camp program for kids. And that's been out. It's self-published, so it's okay. It's going along, but I'm anxious to get it into libraries and more school libraries in particular. And then my second book, which came out last year in 2021, is that Enlighten Up, Finding Clarity, Contentment, and Resilience in a Complicated World. And I have this inner stand-up comic that's trying to get out. So I definitely use a lot of humor to get those messages about the 5 layers across and to provide specific instructions that you can take into your daily life. No yoga mat is needed. No spandex tights are needed. Just simple, accessible, practical, down-to-earth ways that you can take that concept into your life. Those things are very important to me. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I take it people can contact you through your website?
Yes, absolutely. They can
So
sign up for my newsletter, and if they do, they can download 2 tracks of a relaxation tape as a thank you for signing up. And I only send it out 6 times a year. I don't want to slam anybody's or cram anybody's email box with a lot of stuff. So it comes out 6 times a year. And then there's a lot of stuff on my website that they can read. I've been doing blogs. I've got a blog that I've been doing since 2019. So there's a lot of stuff to read there too as well.
Fantastic. Ms. Beth, thank you so much for coming online and gracing us with your amazing presence today. Your energy is infectious. I feel energized just listening to you speak.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story movement is attracting some phenomenal women who are really shining a light on how we should live, how we should be, how we should honor ourselves and find that contentment and happiness. So thank you for being online and listening to this podcast. Come back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Miss Beth, thank you again for this interview.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Enjoyed it tremendously.
Bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Wow. What did you think, Terry?
That was so simplistic. I understood everything. The 5 layers. Oh man, I can't wait to use them. You know that. Yeah, I'm sitting here taking notes as I always do.
Oh, I think she's just one of the most amazing human beings I've met in a very long time.
I
So
can't
just
wait to
to,
contact her for Crossroads. You know, I'm going to contact her.
yes,
I
yes, I
have to
thought
hear
you
it
would.
again. Her story was awesome.
So the 5 layers, lady, just to recap everything we learned from Miss Beth, it's the physical, the energetic, the mind, your intuitive wisdom, and bliss. Beautiful interview. I can see Pat chiming in Australia saying that was a great interview. I thoroughly enjoyed it, Pat. She has an energy to her that is infectious. You know, there was one of those people who, despite the fact that I was sitting in Australia during the interview and she was in the US, I felt like she was right here with me.
Yeah, I
Awesome. So,
love the
Miss,
way that she talked about the wheel and the spokes of the wheel and the hub being the contentment part. And you peel
yes.
away each of those little pieces, you know? Yeah,
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 and that's the truth, right? We are so
right.
busy striving to be enough, to do enough, to be
Oh,
perfect.
you know, that hit me.
It hit all of us, Terry. It hits all of us in the gut. Oh man, it's a real blessing to have these amazing women coming to share their wisdom with us.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I can hear some more of that. I can't wait to contact her.
Fantastic. So we will move on to our next guest, and we are going to hear from Melissa. I will read the bio, shall I?
I
Melissa
have it in front of
Hadley.
I have it in front of
Okay.
me.
All right, go for it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. My name is Melissa Hadley. I am a wife and mother of 3. I am the owner of Destination U Fitness, where I am an online health and fitness coach, specializing in behavior change. I am the creator of the Mindfully Fit Masterclass, where I am coaching women to create a healthier relationship with food and overcome any mindset barriers holding them back from accomplishing their fitness goals. She left the corporate world to help women feel great through the power of health and fitness, but not just that. She wants women to be able to stick with it for the long term by breaking down the mental barriers that are holding them back. In addition, during all this, she has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2009, and it almost robbed her of the ability to cross the finish line to her first qualified Boston Marathon. She went on to run with 2 numb feet for the feeling, but the feeling of crossing that Boston was pretty spectacular. She wants women to feel accomplished during these physical challenges. Okay, she's coached thousands of women on their nutrition and fitness journeys through the years, and it lights my soul on fire to hear their success stories. God has given Melissa one body to care for as her own, and that is what she intends to do. He has also given her a gift to coach others and show them what they are capable of in their fitness journey. I am so excited to bring that to you as well as Melissa is bringing it to us. All right. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Terry.
Hello, I am Melissa Hadley. I am in just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States. I am 41. I'd like to say that I'm in my 30s still, but I am happily 41. And my story starts back when I was in high school and I was over 200 pounds. I live, like I said, outside of Boston. So the Boston Marathon was and still is a very big piece of our culture, so to speak, here in Massachusetts. And it was always a goal of mine to run Boston, even though I hate running. I don't like running at all. But we would go all the time when I was in high school. And one of my friends actually said to me that, well, I was standing at the finish line and I said, I would love to run this race someday. Now, mind you, I was over 200 pounds. My friend looked at me. We're still friends to this day. But she said, you run a marathon? So I've remembered that to this day. And like I said, we are still friends. But it was just one of those things that always stuck with me. So fast forward to college times, and I was still pretty overweight, and I knew that I needed to get healthy. And randomly, I got a flyer in the mail that said that there was this triathlon to train for with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I said to myself, well, why not? I'll do that. I had never done a triathlon ever in my life before, but I was willing to be up for the challenge. So I started training for that, and I really got hooked on how it made me feel. Fitness was making me feel really good. And fast forward a couple years, now we're fast forwarding to 2009. I was actually training for my first Boston Marathon. Now, by this time, I had become a little bit hooked on the fitness train, and I had qualified to run the Boston Marathon. So if you don't know, Boston is really one of the only marathons that you have to qualify for, which means that at a certain age, you have to run a certain time frame for a previous marathon to get a ticket into running Boston, because it's such a prestigious marathon to run. Or you have to run it with a fundraising opportunity and raise a lot of money. But I had qualified to run, which was crazy to me. But in 2009, I was training for that marathon. It was January, February timeframe, and I couldn't feel my feet, either foot. I couldn't feel them. It was like I was being stuck with pins and needles. You know how it feels when your feet fall asleep? That's how it felt all the time. And I didn't understand why. So I kept running because I said to myself, this is your time. You're training for Boston. Now, mind you, I wasn't training the way that you're supposed to train for marathons. I was doing different high intensity interval training, HIIT workouts. I was doing different cardio workouts, but I wasn't really doing the training as laid out in a book that you'd buy on Amazon or something like that. But I felt really good. But then the numbness came, and I said to my, at the time, fiance, I said, something's wrong and I don't know what. So I went to the doctor and had him do a bunch of tests, and he said, everything looks fine. You look fine. And I said, well, something's wrong. I can't feel my feet. So at the time I worked at a health insurance company, and I was talking to a couple doctors that were on staff and a couple of my coworkers, and they said, it sounds like you might have multiple sclerosis. And I was like, there's no way I have multiple sclerosis. I was 28 years old. I felt like I was in the best shape of my life because I had lost a lot of weight. I had lost it the unhealthy way, but I had lost a lot of weight, and I had qualified for Boston, and I was so excited. And I said, all right, I'll ask my doctor for some testing. So they tested my vitamin D levels. And that's basically all he did. And my vitamin D levels came in very low, like off the charts low. So he said, I think I'm going to send you for an MRI. Or I had actually demanded an MRI because he continued to say everything is fine, but your vitamin D levels are low. So when I demanded that MRI, I went and had it done. And I waited for the results. I was sitting at my desk at the health insurance company. And I remember getting the phone call, and I apologize if I get a little teary because it happens every single time, even though it's been 13 years. And I got the phone call, and I remember hearing the doctor say, you need to come to the emergency room. And I said, but why? And he said, because we just need you to come here so that we can do some more additional testing. I said, but to the emergency room, like, why do I need to do that? And I said, can you just tell me? He said, I don't want to tell you over the phone. I said, you need to just tell me why. And he said, because we think you have multiple sclerosis. And I remember hearing those words and just falling to my knees at my desk. And my vice president of the department was walking by me at the time, and she came over and she helped me up and she said, whatever you need, we're here. I remember driving myself to the emergency room and going through all the tests and all the things. And it was confirmed that I had multiple sclerosis at the age of 28. Now, there's no rhyme or reason to multiple sclerosis. They don't know the cause, and there is no cure. So I had my time to mourn the loss of my prior health and to know that I was going to be facing this for the rest of my life. But I'm a Christian, and so I knew that with the power of His grace, I could get through it. And I had friends and family and my fiance at my bedside. And I just decided in that moment that I had to make a change with my health. Like I said, I had lost a lot of weight. But I didn't do it the healthy way. And so I changed my diet. I continued to exercise. I decided personally to not take medication for my MS. And that was a total personal decision. There is a time and a place for medication, and I believe that it is good. But for me, I just decided against it. And I have been mitigating my symptoms for the past 13 years with fitness and proper nutrition. I cut out a lot of things, and it has certainly helped me. Now, fast forward, we've had 3 children. I ended up marrying my fiance, and we've had 3 children since. And, fitness and health is a journey. You're never at your destination, so to speak. You're always trying to be better. You're always trying to drink more water. You're always trying to get rid of the artificial things in your foods and your drinks. You're always trying to get that exercise in, and you're setting those health goals, hopefully. And for me, I have to have a goal in front of me. My why, right? So you always hear about people talking about their why, and their why is to be healthy for their family or be healthy for themselves or whatever the why is. But why then, if we always have this why then do we get so sidetracked? There's a why behind the why. There's a why that throws us off track, and that goes deep. And so what I love to do is coach myself and others through figuring out that why behind the why. What is it that keeps creeping up that holds us back or throws us off track and keeps us there? What keeps us saying, I'll start again on Monday, or I'll start again at the first of the month, or even worse, I'll start again at the new year? What is it that throws us back there? And how do we overcome that, right? So what are the steps that we need to take to overcome starting again Monday? Breaking up with Sam is what I like to call it. How do we break up with Sam once and for all? So for me, it's not just so that I can stay out of a wheelchair or stay away from having to use a cane or being able to play with my kids, but it's digging into what might throw me off track. So I dig into things that happened in my childhood that might be throwing me off track. And I also set additional goals for myself. So I have now gone on to run 10 different marathons and numerous different half marathons. And I even ran a half Ironman. And it has been on my goal list to run a full Ironman. And if you don't know what that is, just Google it. It's insane. But I can't wait for that day where I do cross that finish line for a full Ironman. And maybe I'll be 60 or 70 by that time, but it is on my goal list. And if you set goals that might seem out of your reach right now, if you just take steps to reaching those, no matter what life throws you, you'll be able to reach them in some way, shape, or form. And I just want to encourage you today that, yes, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2009. But I really, in my heart of hearts, believe that it was a gift to me. And that might sound really crazy, but if it hadn't been for that MS diagnosis, I wouldn't be able to coach the thousands of women that I've been able to coach online. I wouldn't have this story to give to you right now on HerStory. I'm thankful for it. And God didn't do this to me. It was done not by him, but for me, so that I could inspire other women, no matter where you are in this world, to take whatever life throws at you, to harness that energy and to bring positivity out of it. I never would have thought of MS as a blessing, but for me, it has been. It's a disease that doesn't have a cure, but it could be worse. So I always think of this as something that, it could be worse. You just never know what life is going to throw. And I think, over the past couple of years, it has been very obvious to many of us throughout the world that our health should be our first priority. And without our health, life can be very difficult. And so even if it's just taking those baby steps to capturing your health and harnessing that, it's the baby steps that lead to the long-lasting results. And when you are healthy and when you are happy, you are going to be able to take care of those who need you the most, even better than you were before. Before I was diagnosed with MS, my life was so different. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have a family. But after MS, I got married. I had a baby. Oh, and with that baby, I gained back every single pound that I had previously lost the unhealthy way. So it was in 2010 when I took back the reins and really dove into how am I going to lose this weight now that I have this diagnosis so that I can be healthy. Because weight loss isn't just about the size of jeans that you're wearing or how you look at the beach with a bathing suit on. That's not what it's about. It's how you feel day in and day out so that you can be your best for those who need you the most, right? So I just encourage you that no matter where you are at your health and fitness journey or in your health and fitness journey, that you take the reins and you draw that line in the sand and you say to yourself, no matter what happens, I am going to prioritize my health so that I can be my best for those who need me most. And let that be your life song for your fitness and health journey, because that's what it is. It is a journey and it is not an overnight thing. There is no quick fix. It takes work and it takes dedication and consistency to reach those goals that you have set for yourself with your health and fitness journey. Nutrition, consistency, fitness, and the camaraderie piece with accountability.
Wow, Melissa, what an amazing story you've lived.
Thank you.
You've really come to remind all of us this morning that your health is your wealth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Unless you're healthy and vibrant, there's very little you can do in life.
Right.
And yes, sometimes life throws us these curveballs. You had MS, I had congestive heart failure, but it's what do you do when you're down? How do you get yourself out of that rut and keep taking one step and putting one step in front of the other? So my first question for you is this. If you could go back to that younger woman who had the diagnosis, you're obviously in shock. Your whole life looks like it's about to change. if there is somebody who's listening to us now who's in that position, if you could have gone back, what would you have wanted somebody to say to you based on what life has taught you up until this point?
I would say that it's not the end of the world. It feels like it at the time, and you are allowed to feel like this really stinks. You're allowed to feel that way. Have that moment, have that time, but don't get stuck there. Understand that what is happening, yes, it stinks and it's hard, but you are stronger than your biggest obstacle. And you will see the light at the end of that proverbial tunnel. And you have the strength within you to keep going. And just also lean on others that are around you, whether that's family or friends, church community, whatever it is, just lean on those people around you so that you don't feel like you're alone. Even if it's finding people on social media to gather around you and support you, whatever it is, you will come out on the other side stronger than you ever thought that you would.
I love that. I love that. And looking for community is a big thing. There's so many groups of different interests online. Using Facebook groups, I was able to find women recovering from heart failure. And they share and they post ideas, things they're doing to recover. So you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Now, you've said so many things today that really resonate with my journey. And a lot of times when you're down and you're out, it looks like you're being punished. Like, why is God doing this to me?
Yeah.
And you said something interesting. You said that God has done this for me. And that it has made you who you are. You wouldn't have helped the thousands of women you've helped so far if you hadn't gone through the experience yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it's a real beautiful way of reframing the things that happen to us.
Yes.
That there's always something good that can come out of it. And the choice is really yours, right?
Right.
So how did you manage to maintain such a positive mindset? Because your head gets in the way most of the time.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you handled that internal voice.
All right. So you can see this sign above me says blessed. So I've always grown up with a knowledge of who God is and what he does for us. And I've been blessed with a great family who stands behind all of that. And so I've always felt I grew up with that. So it's just how I've always been. I've always known that he has a bigger purpose. But like I said, I did have that moment in that hospital bed where I was like, what in the world? Like, why me? And I think that's normal, right? That's our human nature to wonder, why me? What's going on? Why would you do this to me, God? But the more I thought about it and the more I went along in my journey, I was like, you know what? I can either let MS be something that happened to me or be something that happened for me, for other people. And when I'm telling you that I've been able to reach thousands of women, that's no understatement. And that's not a toot of my own horn because I like to be humble. But I would not have a story to share with people to let them know that their health is incredibly important had I not been diagnosed with MS. And that's not to say that you have to have a big diagnosis or something tragic happen to you to have a story. Everybody has a story. No matter, I hope you don't have a story that includes a diagnosis of some sort. You have something within you that will speak to hundreds of thousands of people out there and build community with those people. And that's what I feel like we're on this earth to do, is to just build connections and build community with people that we never thought possible. And so, yeah, it took a couple days for me to really grasp that, but I do feel like my faith is what brought me to that space. If I didn't have my faith, it probably would have taken me a lot longer. But hopefully that answers your question.
It sure does. So people can get hold of you how, Melissa? Through your website?
Yes. So my website is www.melissa, MELISSA, Hadley, HADLEY.com, or on Instagram, which is melissa.hadley.fitwithms.
Fantastic. I've got your website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So if anybody out there who is needing help just to get yourself back on your feet, please reach out to Melissa. And my last question for you is this, Melissa. If time was an illusion and I could take you into the future and you could go and have a conversation with 100-year-old you.
Oh.
You're now sitting in your rocking chair with your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your dogs, your cats. And you could have a conversation with this wise woman who's led you to that point. What would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
Oh. That's a good one. I would just say, thank you for taking the time to spend the time with others who need your time, especially your children and your husband. Life is too short, so make sure that you are making the time for those who need you most, which are your family and your friends, but also the time for the strangers out there who might need you and you don't even know it.
Oh, wow. You've got me crying now. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I love asking that question because a lot of times women fail to realize that they already have all the wisdom inside them.
Yeah, it's true.
And that future you is guiding you into the future. And sometimes you just have to ask her, what is my next step? What do I do today? And she will take you there.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
thank you. Yeah.
everything. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The HerStory movement is attracting some pretty cool women.
Yeah.
Women who are changing the world through their stories, making a difference in whatever way they can. So come back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Melissa, thank you again for this interview.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye for now, everybody. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing woman. Truly
Oh.
inspirational when we meet people who have faced challenges that could hold them back. And they just keep pushing on and using that experience to uplift and empower others, Terry.
Oh, yes, yes. And as you've always said, we have it within us. We just have to tap into it more often.
Yeah. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker who's going to come to us live this time. Dr. Donnie, welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to join you.
Wonderful to have you with us today. I'm going to read your bio, and we are going to give you 15 minutes to share your story before we come in with our Q&A session. Just so you know, this is being broadcast on our HerStory Online Summit right now live. So the timing of your connecting with us was so perfect. Your content is perfect for today as well, because it looks like it's all things focused on healthcare and women's health. So thank you for being here with us today.
You're
welcome. I'll read your bio. Dr. Donnie Wilson, ND, CPM, CNS. You're going to have to explain all those acronyms to us. I know you're a naturopath doctor, is a health visionary, researcher, best-selling author, and international speaker. Through her research and clinical experience, she developed her stress recovery protocol, which takes stress management to the next level by utilizing epigenetics to individualize the optimization of cortisol, adrenaline, and neurotransmitters. Dr. Donnie earned her doctorate degree in neuropathic medicine in Bastyr University, where she also completed her residency. She's also a certified midwife, a certified nutrition specialist, and has degrees in both nutrition and science. For more than 22 years, Dr. Donnie has helped thousands of patients overcome health challenges that are considered irreversible. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to exit the stage. I will time the 15 minutes, so you don't have to worry when you see me coming back in. Just wind down what you're saying, and then we'll have our Q&A session. But again, welcome to the tribe. Really excited to hear what you've got to share with us today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for welcoming me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story and to hopefully be inspiring your audience. I, as you mentioned, am a naturopathic doctor. I trained at Bastyr University in Seattle, Washington, and I grew up on the west coast of the United States. So that was close to home for me, really. I've subsequently been living on the East Coast for the past 21 years. So I often say that I grew up in a pharmacy because my father is a pharmacist still, even. And so when I was a kid, I was always in and out of the pharmacy. And really, though, what might be surprising is to know that what I learned from my father, the pharmacist, was how can we prevent the need for medications whenever possible? How can we choose healthy foods and time in nature and other activities like exercise that are going to help prevent health issues and prevent the need for medications whenever possible. And so that's what I actually ended up learning from my childhood. My mother is a special education teacher. And what I learned from her is that this awareness about stress. I don't know if other people had those conversations with their moms in childhood, but what my mom would do is if there was something stressful going on, like let's say we moved a lot. I went to 10 different schools when I was growing up. Between the time I started school and finished high school, I went to 10 different schools. And so that was a lot of change. And my mom would say, we're experiencing stress. This is what stress feels like. This is what stress looks like. So I actually came out of my childhood with the words associated with the experience of stress, which I don't think many children get that, right? We might know that something was going on, but we don't understand that it was a stressful experience or that we could do something to help ourselves through that stress, like even just talking about it. And so when I was getting my bachelor's in science, which was a pre-med degree, I ended up finding myself very interested in studying nutrition and got a degree in nutrition as well. And then I thought to myself, I really want to study a type of medicine that includes food as medicine. And that's when a friend of mine said, well, have you considered naturopathic medicine? Because that's what you study in naturopathic medical school. And I had not heard of it before, even though there were naturopathic medical schools nearby me. I didn't know about them until my friend mentioned it. And there was no Google back then. This was back in the 90s. So I got in my car and I drove to the naturopathic medical school, Bastyr University in Seattle. And I walked in and I said, I want to study medicine that involves food as medicine. And they were like, I'm sure they were like, oh my gosh, does she have any idea? This is exactly what we do here. So I was like, I thought my dream had come true, right? I just thought I had this idea. I didn't know other people were having this idea. And so that's what led me to naturopathic medical school. And I also knew at that time, because I had been doing internships with all different medical practitioners, I knew that I wanted to become a midwife. And so Bastyr also has a midwifery program. So I was able to study midwifery alongside naturopathic medicine at the same time. And in my midwifery training, what I studied is how stress affects women in labor. So this is where stress came back into the story. I was very intrigued by understanding how does stress affect women in labor, especially women who have a history of abuse. And what I found was most interesting from that research is that, see, so many times with stress, we assume that it would be better to have zero stress, right? We sometimes wish we could be stress free. Or when we learn about cortisol, our main stress hormone, we assume it would be better to have zero cortisol. But actually, what I learned from those women in labor is that it's not about having zero stress. We actually need a certain amount of our stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, in order for labor to progress effectively. So it was about how to have the optimal amount of cortisol and adrenaline for our bodies to function best in whatever the scenario is. In that case, it was labor. And so I thought, wow, this is not about having zero stress. This is about how do we support ourselves through a stressful experience like labor. And they show that when women have a doula, for example, or when women have more information about labor, that labor progresses with fewer interventions and complications. So when I finished my residency and my midwifery training, I moved to Manhattan, and it was November 2001. It was right after 9/11, one of the most stressful times in the history of the world, let alone Manhattan, right? Everyone was in a traumatic state because they had just come through the experience of 9/11. And so I found myself again thinking, wait a minute, does what I learned from the women in labor apply to people who are going through other stresses in their life? Is it what they need is an optimal amount of cortisol and adrenaline? And so I started measuring people's levels. And this is for myself and for my patients, because I started seeing patients all around the New York area. And so the testing became available. I was able to measure cortisol levels, and I still do in my practice today. For patients all around the world, we measure cortisol and adrenaline levels. You can measure cortisol in saliva or urine is usually the easiest way, because we want to measure when you wake up in the morning, the middle of the day, the evening, and the bedtime. Because cortisol is naturally and optimally a hormone that should be higher when we wake up in the morning and gradually decreasing through the day. That's what we want cortisol to be doing. But if cortisol is either too high or too low at certain times a day, that's when it starts to cause various kinds of health symptoms, right? So if cortisol is either too high or too low, and it's different for different people, we assume we all have high cortisol, but that's not the case, not even for 50% of us. Sometimes it's too high at certain times a day, sometimes it's too low at certain times a day. And the same with the adrenaline, which we can measure adrenaline in urine. So now it's been more than 20 years that I've been measuring cortisol and adrenaline levels on thousands of patients. And I've done studies retroactively to analyze what are the patterns, what are the most common patterns of cortisol and adrenaline that humans experience when we're under stress of various types. And this is how I identified the 5 most common stress patterns, or what I call the stress types. And this is what I wrote about in my most recent book. You see over my shoulder here, the Master Your Stress, Reset Your Health book. I wrote about these stress patterns that I've identified through my research and clinical experience, because the key is the treatment is different. So if a person has high cortisol, we're going to use different herbs and nutrients that are well established in research to help bring cortisol not to zero, but we want to bring the cortisol to optimal, right? Just like those women in labor, we want to help use herbs and nutrients, but not only that, but we can use activities, daily activities like meditation or mindfulness or journaling or music or dancing or spending time in nature. So many activities that can help bring our cortisol back to optimal. And if cortisol is too low, we're going to use totally different herbs and nutrients. And we might even be using different activities at different times a day and different durations. So it's really important to know your stress pattern. It's important to know your cortisol and adrenaline levels so that you're giving your body the right treatment to bring your cortisol and adrenaline to optimal, because it's when our cortisol and adrenaline are optimal that we're going to experience the best health, the best energy levels, the best mood and sleep and focus. We also know that when we have optimal cortisol and adrenaline, we're preventing heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia, every kind of chronic health issue you can think of, even autoimmunity. We're decreasing it, or we're preventing it, or we're even reversing it by optimizing cortisol and adrenaline levels. And so that's why I've developed my stress recovery protocol to help people to successfully recover from stress of all types. And by the way, one of the ways that I really helped fine tune and understand my stress recovery protocol was by actually helping myself recover. I have a history of severe migraines. So while I was in naturopathic medical school and seeing patients all those years, and even raising my daughter, I have a daughter who's almost 20. While I was doing all of that, I was getting severe migraines 2 or 3 times a month. And those migraines would take me out. I couldn't do anything. I would be on the bathroom floor and oftentimes vomiting for 24 hours from the pain. And nothing would help. No medication, no treatment. I tried everything. I mean, sometimes certain things would help a little bit. Like if I was doing massage therapy, acupuncture, everything I could think of, and I would get small improvements, but those migraines would not go away. And so I would fine tune my protocol year by year, bit by bit. I changed my diet, avoiding gluten. That would help a little bit. I heal leaky gut. That would help. I would get my cortisol and adrenaline optimized, and that would help. And I would look at toxin exposure in my environment and deal with those toxins, and that would help. And so little by little, I got those migraines to go away. Now I don't get those migraines anymore. And what I always like to emphasize is one of the things that really I believe was one of the turning points for getting the migraines to go away was when I started talking about them. And I think this is really common that when we're experiencing symptoms, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, oftentimes we feel like embarrassed that we have those symptoms, or as if we're not supposed to have those symptoms, or that nobody else is going to understand. And so we kind of are in our own hidden world dealing with the physical and emotional pain of our health issues. And I want to encourage you that you don't have to be alone. I wish I would have said to myself 20 years ago, start talking about this and sharing about it, because when I did start sharing and talking about, hey, even though I'm a naturopathic doctor, I was getting these severe migraines, and I was trying to figure out why, and I struggled a long time to solve it. When I started telling that story, the migraines went away. And it just tells me that there's a piece of our health that has to do with becoming more aligned with ourselves, with becoming more accepting of our bodies, more in communication with our communities. And when we get that alignment with ourself and that acceptance of ourself, then everything comes into connection. Now, all the hormones I had balanced, all of the detoxification I had done, all the stress recovery, including the stress recovery of being accepting of myself and the stress that I had been through in my life, helped my symptoms go away. And so now I'm so grateful to be out of pain and to be able to share this protocol with others, to give you hope that no matter the health, the way it's showing up for your body, whether it's showing up in terms of migraines, or maybe it's showing up as an autoimmune condition, or anxiety or depression, or skin issues or digestive issues, however it's showing up for you, to me, it's just that's your body sending you indicators, signals that stress is causing imbalances. And we then can go in and figure out what are those imbalances for you. Is it causing higher low cortisol? Is it causing higher low adrenaline? We know how to address those with nutrients and herbs. We can do that. If it's imbalancing neurotransmitter levels, we can also address that, like serotonin, using amino acids and nutrients. Is it causing imbalanced gut bacteria? We can also address that. Is it causing food sensitivities and inflammation from leaky gut? We can heal leaky gut, right? So whatever disruptions that stress is causing, we can address that. And it's especially more effective if we address it based on your stress type or your stress pattern. I really like to emphasize that it's not one size fits all. Stress recovery is not the same for everyone. It really is going to be more effective if we individualize it for you. And not only that, but we want to really help understand your body, what it's trying to tell you, and give you a strategic protocol that's not just a quick fix. It's actually helping your body recover, and then it's all about maintenance. This is phase 3 of my protocol. Is once we get everything rebalanced, let's help maintain it that way. We develop a self-care routine so that you can maintain over time, because stress is not going to go away. It's not about being stress-free. Yes, there's certain stresses we can decrease and avoid, but there's going to be stresses that happen. There's actually stresses we might choose to have a business or to have a baby or to interact with other people in our lives. There's going to be some stress even from loss and different challenges that come up. So it's not about expecting stress to disappear. It's also, to me, it's not about managing stress. A lot of times we hear about managing our stress, but to me, managing stress almost is like just assuming that we can't do much about it, so we just got to manage it. I'm saying we can do a lot about it. We can actually help your body and your mind recover from stress so that you can be your healthiest self and choose which stress you might want to be exposed to, but also choose what anti-stress you want to choose to counterbalance it, to maintain these optimal levels over time. And so that's become my mission and my passion, is how do we maintain optimal health while doing what we love, right? Following your passion, doing what you love. You shouldn't have to not do what you love. You should be able to do what you love and be healthy.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It's really interesting listening to you this morning. The thread of conversations we've had since we've started have all been based on self-care and women looking after themselves. And stress is one of the biggest issues that affects all of us in one way or another.
Yeah.
But what I do like about what you said is it's the choice that we get to make on how to manage it, on how to deal with it, correct?
Yeah. Yep, there's so much we can. It's true. It's like we get to then be in the driver's seat, because sometimes it feels like we're being drugged behind the car, like this stress is just pulling us through and we're barely hanging on for dear life. But what if we could actually put ourselves back in the driver's seat and say, I want to choose my stress. I want to choose my self-care. I'm going to choose to prioritize myself. And that's a whole different way of being in your life.
I love it, because we can't live without stress. It's not like we can get rid of it completely, right? It's a part of us.
It is. And I would say, like, we're built as humans, we're built to respond to stress. We want to be able to have a healthy stress response, right? If something dangerous happens, you want your adrenaline and cortisol to protect you. So we want to have a healthy stress response. If we didn't have a stress response, I don't think we would be human. It's so integral to being human.
I love it. Now, before Jerry chimes in with her questions, I'm going to just jump in here again. You talk about food being medicine. A lot of times we eat very unconsciously. We consume certain food types. We're not even aware of the impact it has on the body. And for me personally, the older I've grown, the more difficult it is for me to process certain foods. When I was younger, I could eat anything. Nothing really affected me. But now, especially because I ended up collapsing with congestive heart failure due to hypertension, I'm more aware of what I'm putting in my mouth, reading the labels. Let's talk a little bit about food and how women can use food as medicine.
Definitely. And this is the thing, is, to me, a lot of it as you're describing in your story, like we used to be able to eat these foods earlier in life, and now you're noticing that that's not so much the case. And to me, I do relate it to stress. We know that when we have more stress exposure and less anti-stress, that we're not going to digest our food as well. And when we don't digest our food as well, first of all, we don't get the nutrients, because the food has to be digested in order for us to get the nutrients. But also, undigested food is more likely to trigger inflammatory responses and to cause imbalanced gut bacteria. And we know that inflammation and imbalanced gut bacteria are very much related to all different kinds of health conditions, including heart disease, right? So we go, oh my gosh, if we want to help with, let's say, hypertension, we want to be dropping inflammation, we want to be balancing the gut bacteria, and we want to be getting the cortisol and adrenaline back to optimal. And so I think that the reactions to the foods are telling you that your digestion needs help, and it needs you to manage, deal with the stress issues so that you're digesting your food better. And once you digest your food better, oftentimes you'll be able to go back to eating certain foods and have them not be a problem anymore.
Yeah. So let's talk about inflammation and the kind of foods that can help minimize inflammation in the body.
Mm-hmm. Well, the foods that are considered more inflammatory, the most common ones are going to be dairy, like anything from cow milk is more inflammatory. Gluten, anything from gluten, which is going to be barley, rye, spelt, and wheat. So not just whole wheat, but any kind of wheat is going to contain gluten. And gluten is known to not only cause damage in the digestive tract and to the gut bacteria, but also to be inflammatory. So if you just are saying, hey, I want to decrease inflammation with my diet, then you could just start decreasing dairy products and gluten products, and you're already going to drop your inflammation level just from that. Let alone sugar. Sugar intake also is very inflammatory to our bodies, because sugar causes fluctuations in blood sugar levels, and we know that also causes a lot of inflammation. So those would be my top 3 when I think of inflammatory foods.
Okay. Very, very simple and straightforward. Jerry, do you want to jump in here with any questions? Because I could go on forever. This is a passion subject for me right now.
It's really not a question. It's just that sometimes stress creep up on you, and it manifests itself in different ways. For me, the last time I was stressed out on a job, it surfaced on my skin, my face, and I don't have blemishes. I've never had zits or anything, and I had to just go internally to say, what is causing this? Yeah. Well, my mother, being who she is, says, you're stressed out. They're stressing you out. And I'm like, nah. Here I go to the dermatologist, my hair starts to come out, and I'm like thin, and what's going on? I go to an infectionist thinking I'm dying inside, right? I'm doing all these things. And finally, the job, they decided to lay me off only because they restructured. They wanted to get rid of me anyway. You know how that is. You promote to your level of incompetency, and I was not incompetent. So, so they had to get rid of me. But it was okay because I turned 65 at that time. So I have made a vow to myself. I'm always aware of my body. And so I knew something was wrong. I mean, I went the whole eating non-gluten things because I'm like, everything was inflamed, and I'm like, what is going on? I increased my probiotics, and I'm doing all the things that I should do, when all I had to do was settle down, accept what was going on. So I wanted to share that, because what you're saying is true. If you settle down, you can, and I even took a laughter yoga class and became a certified laughter yoga. And that really helped me a lot, because people would say things to me, I'll just start laughing. and they'd look at me like, what is going on with you? I said, I'm not trying to hear what you're saying. I'm just not trying to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So I laugh to settle myself down because really I just want to hit him, you know. But so, you know, that's how I've managed to cope. And also I've changed my diet, you know, a zillion times, but this time at the age of 73, I've got to stick to it. I can't be yo-yoing up and down. So, and it has helped. And so I do all those things, and excuse the picture. It's because today I golfed and I needed to visit my mom, and that's where I am. So I'm not camera ready. I still
I
have on
see.
my golf uniform. So I've been increasing my golf. I've been increasing all those things that's helping me cope with life.
Good for you.
I'm finally trying to get it right.
You're so exactly describing what I talk about in my self-care method. C for clean eating. So you're saying you cleaned up your diet. A for
Mhm.
adequate. Now you didn't mention that, but I'm assuming when you got out of that job, you were probably sleeping better too.
Oh
Um,
yes, yes, definitely, because I exercise quite a bit and I
right,
walk on a regular basis.
and
Yes.
then you don't have this stressful job preventing you from sleeping, so you can just get in bed and sleep and not worry.
Yes.
And then you're doing R is the recovery activities, everything from laughter and meditation and spending time with people you love. And E for exercise. So it's CARE to help us remember to take care of
Okay.
ourselves.
I'm on point. Okay, great, great. And thanks to Gertrude, I'm doing something that I enjoy. I've become a Tamron Hall by being on her broadcast, and I will have my own broadcast soon. So yeah,
Fantastic.
so I'm enjoying life, enjoying it. Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Donnie, how can people get hold of you? Do you help people online? I've got your website scrolling on the bottom of the screen there in case anybody wants to reach out. Tell us, what do you do to help people?
Now I help people around the world. So you can definitely, because I can do sessions, one-on-one sessions and group programs by video and by phone. So I love it because we don't have to be limited by time and space. I can help
Yes.
people wherever they are. And it just brings me joy because I'm hoping that if any of what I've said resonates, where you're like, I've just been really wanting help to recover from stress. And I know that some practitioners might mention stress, but they likely don't have a protocol for successfully helping you recover from stress to get to optimal health. And so that's why I'm like, let me make this available by online. So you can at drdonnie.com, you will find all kinds of resources. I have a blog that you, if you would like to read. There's also my podcast called How Humans Heal, which is there, and also master classes and videos. So you can do a lot of learning about various different health issues and get started, working with me right from there. In fact, I was going to mention too, if you go to drdonnie.com and then /quiz, you can do my stress type quiz. And this is a really good place to start because I developed this quiz to help you know what is your stress type pattern. And you can do it right online. You answer it within a couple minutes. You'll know what is your stress type. And then you'll know what you can start doing to help yourself recover from your stress type.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for that gift. Now, as you know, the theme of our events is the power of giving. And I'm always curious to know what our members are doing to give back. What is your social impact project or passion?
Well, one of my passions is helping animals also. And so I have a nonprofit where we take care of feral cats in the area where I live, and so we do trap, neuter, release, as well as care for these animals on a daily basis. And so this is just a constant, also part of my world is taking care of the animals in my area because it's real. I mean, I know a lot of places in the world that's also a concern. So some of you maybe can relate to that. But yeah, I live in a world of helping humans and also helping animals.
That is fantastic. And what is the website for your nonprofit?
Oh, it's called Cat Care, and you can also find it on Facebook under Cat Care, or I think it's under Animals to the Rescue is the Facebook group. That's probably the best
Okay.
place to find it is Animals to the
Animals to
or
the
Cats,
Rescue.
not animals but cats. Cats to the Rescue is on the Facebook group.
Okay, fantastic.
Mhm.
Just so that people can help you and support you in your efforts as well.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here with us today. We've had a few people chiming in on Facebook. We've got Khadija in New York saying thank you so much. That was really good. Pat was saying it's a great interview. So thank you for coming online and gracing us with your presence today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for what you do.
And I'll be in touch with you
Thank
next
you.
week with regards to our reality TV show.
I
I'll
always
schedule a time to
used
catch
to
up with
say
you and give you more information about that.
everybody else can
The
talk
vision and the
about
mission
me.
behind the reality TV show is for us to amplify the voices of all of these amazing women who come forward to share their stories. So it's not a frivolous show. It's a down-to-earth, real women doing real work on the ground. No drama, no negativity. But I'll schedule an appointment to catch up with you about that after the summit is over, maybe on the 1st of October.
Sounds good. I'll watch for you.
Okay, awesome. Have a fantastic weekend.
You
Thank you
too.
again for being with us today.
You're welcome.
All right, that was wonderful. And you're welcome to stay if you like, or if you need to go, we totally understand.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to definitely go on your website.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wow. What an incredible day. So
Oh, yeah.
let us move on to our next speaker. And I think we will go with Chrissy Webb. Do you have Chrissy's bio?
I do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terry. I'll line up the video.
Okay. Excuse me. Chrissy Webb is the co-founder and executive director of Student ACES, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to inspiring and developing young men and women of character, honor, and integrity. Chrissy has been in leadership positions in the nonprofit sector for over 12 years, where she has dedicated her career to inspiring a new generation of leaders through Student ACES. She has positively impacted over 50,000 high school student athletes and has taught them leadership skills, values, and character education to be successful men and women in the classroom, the athletic fields, and in their communities. She is a certified instructor of mental health, first aid. Chrissy lives in Palm Beach Gardens with her husband, twin daughters. Chrissy is a mentor to hundreds of children, and through her personal involvement and relentless dedication, has saved many lives. If Chrissy is not with high school students, you will find her on the softball field with her daughters and the 10U Lady Gators travel softball team. She is the head coach. She is a warrior for our youth and has passion and is unwavering. Giving strong-minded students confidence and character education while helping them aspire to greatness puts the future of our country, makes sure that the country is prepared, capable hands. It is important to me to have good leaders for my strong daughters to look up to. Chrissy, we want to thank you for our future and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Terry.
Well, thank you so much, Gertrude, for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. My name is Chrissy Webb. I am in the United States, in Florida, and I am just turned 40, July 14th. So it's a big number for me. And again, I'm so thrilled to be here and share my story. So was born in Miami, Florida. My parents migrated from Cuba in the 50s, and they came here to the United States with nothing. And so I was born in Miami. Then when I was 5, we moved to Juno Beach, Florida with Florida Power and Light, which is a power company. My dad had a job, Florida Power and Light, moved to Palm Beach County, which is about 2 hours north of north of Miami. And so I had a great upbringing. I have 2 sisters. My parents have been together since high school. Grew up in Palm Beach County, as I mentioned. My parents were both very involved in my life. My dad coached me in all my sports. Back then, you played all different sports. Now kids have to commit to one sport, which I do not like, by the way, at an early age. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. Work ethic has been installed in me from a very early age. As I mentioned, my parents came from Cuba with nothing. My grandparents were very involved in our lives. And so fast forward to today, I have twin girls that are now 10. And in 2012, my dad and I were in a U-Haul. He was still with the power company after 35 years. And I said, Dad, who are my girls going to look up to as role models? And what does that look like? And how are they preparing these young women to be our leaders, our next generation of leaders? So what are they doing? And he said, and I said, what's after FPL? What does that look like? What are we going to do to make sure that these girls have those role models to look up to? So after 4 hours in a U-Haul, we went back and forth, and we said, okay, what if we start meeting with these high schools to see what they are teaching? That's where Student ACES was birthed. So Student ACES, ACE stands for Athletics, Community, and Education. So with the idea that through athletics, you can create positive behavior change in schools to emulate those good behaviors for the rest of the student body. Because what we kept hearing from the high schools was that the student body looks up to the student athlete. Being an athlete, parents were athletes, my sisters are athletes. That work ethic, that drive, how do you make sure that, again, other kids can look up to that? So we started a pilot program back in 2013. We are a charity organization, started a pilot program, took 32 student athletes and said, okay, what are those core values? What are those values that we want to make sure that every student has the opportunity to have? So it's respect, it's trust, it's sacrifice, it's work ethic, it's personal brand, it's ethics and morality. So if we can drive that through these young people, then we can really create these leaders. So we started with 32 student athletes. We met once a month in a central location. So these are kids from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different experiences that came together and worked on problem solving, on case studies. And I'll tell you, it was so impressive. So that was our pilot program. So that was in 2013. Then from there, we said, okay, there's something here. There's something really powerful here. So in 2014, we said, okay, we're going to take 64 students. So we doubled the amount of students, worked on that monthly class. So we met once a month, about 9 classes a month. Then from there, we tripled. And then in 2017, my dad said he had big news for our family and he was officially retiring. So he retired in 2016, 17 to do this full time with me. From there, we had these monthly classes that were teaching these core values. He started publishing the books and curriculum. And so everything that we teach is in-house. We started then formulating these captain summits. So we would hear from the students. And again, I'll back up and say everything that we've done we didn't look at a research study and say, okay, that's what we want to do because that's what research says. We listened to these kids and said, what are the needs? What are the gaps? And how can we help those schools and these students to provide these services? So we had these classes, and then it ended up matching research that said these kids need XYZ. So then we started with captain summits. We said, okay, what are the roles and responsibilities of a captain on a team? Because that's what the kids were saying to us was, I'm the captain of my team. Nobody's given me a roadmap. Nobody tells me how to be a leader. So then we started captain summits. So we've worked with kids all over South Florida, brought them together. So the most powerful part of our program is bringing these kids, as I mentioned, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, private schools, public schools, inner city schools, schools that are 30,000 plus a year, together in one setting to work on these problems. So then we started captain summits. Then the schools would call us and say, hey, I have a team and they have a really bad attitude. So how do I work with that? What do I do? What do I do in these situations where they don't know, how to work together, or their personalities aren't meshing? So then we would work with these different teams and workshops and teaching these core values. But again, the model had always been PowerPoint presentation, and these kids weren't not responding to lecture. So everything that we do is extremely interactive. So that, for instance, you are on a team and one of your teammates is drunk at a party, at a high school party, and they call you. And do you go to the party and pick them up? Do you call the parents? So all of these really tough decisions that kids are really battling with, social media, pressures, mental health. So everything that stemmed from that. So then after captain summits, I was certified in mental health first aid. There was such a need for teaching kids how to deal with friends that were struggling with their mental health. And what does that look like? So that's a national program. I was certified in mental health first aid. Continued to grow the organization. So what started with, we didn't fundraise for the first 2 years, $150,000 third year, $350,000 fourth year, to now fast forward, $2.1 million budget. So then after the captain summits, we got a call, and it was from Bank of America, and they said, hey, we have this building on Main Street in Belle Glade. So Belle Glade is one of the poorest cities in America. The poverty rate is astronomical. It was known as the AIDS capital of the world. It's been on the news, a lot of crime. But we had already been out in Belle Glade working with these kids, and we fell in love with these kids. These kids have been through so much adversity, so much trauma, but they just need somebody to love them. So we said, we will take the building. We've been out here for a couple of years. We will absolutely take the building. We will run programs and services every single day. So with that, we have a building out in Belle Glade that is serves students every single day. We have a staff of 4. Everything from the most traumatic situations that you could ever imagine to these kids going to college and workforce and all of these different things. So we've developed these programs to really, these wraparound services to provide, to fill those gaps, to prepare them just as a private school would prepare these kids. So we are so excited about what the future holds. We've been out there for about 2 years. Most of the time it was COVID, so we had to adjust, right? So we had our alumni home from college, and we had different, these were football players. We had athletes home, and they didn't have computer because when COVID happened, it was March, which is spring break in the United States. So they came home with nothing. We had schools shipping laptops. We opened as a distance learning center for kids, and really drove that, the academics component of it, because we saw that there was so much that these kids were missing out on in academics. So that's called the Student ACES Center. So our organization has programs, services, and then we have a full-time center. That's our only physical location, is out in Belglade. And then we just recently announced ACES Elite. So my daughters are 10 now. When we started the organization in 2012, they were just born. So we've been an organization for 10 years. My girls are 10. They play competitive travel softball. So I am their coach. And we would always get asked, why don't you start younger? Why don't you, start in middle school or with the youth? Because they need these core values at such a young age. And when I said, no, high school student athletes, that's it. That's our sweet spot. That's what we're comfortable in. But then I kept seeing, these girls struggling with confidence and being berated by men that were their coaches. And, there was this youth sports component was so prevalent. And if anybody knows me, they know that if I see a gap, man, I'm going full speed ahead. So then we started this youth sports initiative, which is giving those youth sports entities that curriculum and those tools to create these young women who will be prepared and confident and have those skills to change the world. And even at 10 years old, you can see these girls just take that on. The difference between a young woman who has that confidence and those skills and believes in themselves to, starting in high school where they don't, you're trying to break through that trauma and really reverse that, that lack of confidence and that self-esteem. So we started with this youth sports initiative, which is about a week old. So it's part of our strategic plan. And I am so thrilled to do this with these young women, to prepare them to, even at a younger age, to be ready to be these leaders. We have done self-defense courses with our women. We do mock interviews. We try to give them as many tools to set them up for success as possible. So, if I would be lying if I said that it's not a 24-hour, a day job. It is, because you fall in love with these kids and you want to see them succeed. So you want to give them those opportunities that I had growing up, with parents that were so involved, and my sisters, and that connection. So they haven't had, a lot of these young women and these kids haven't had those experiences, those life experiences. So the more opportunity, it's what they choose. I mean, you provide as much opportunity as possible, and it's essentially what they choose to capitalize on. So you can give them all the tools and you can do as much as you can, but they have to want it themselves. And that's one of the harder things that I've learned over the last 10 years is that I can't do it for them, but I can give them the tools to set them up for success.
Wow. What a phenomenal story. I just absolutely love what you have done. Right now, a lot of young girls are struggling. They're struggling just to find their feet. Leadership is something that not many have intuitively. So if you could go back to the younger you, that young woman who was starting this amazing organization, you knew there was a need for it. You weren't sure how to get it started, how to navigate the new space, but you did. If there was somebody who's listening to us right now in a similar position and is needing advice, what would you have wanted somebody to tell you at that point? 3 pieces of wisdom.
Okay, so for me, it gets harder as you grow. So that, when we were an organization that was bringing in the $300,000. Now, as $1 million organization, it's much harder. So, you get comfortable, but you have to work harder than anybody else. And so how do you do that? You work harder than everybody else. That's the first thing, that you can't be satisfied with average. You have to learn everything yourself. Second thing, learn everything yourself. I researched who was doing it the best and and I would pick up the phone and call them and say, how do you do what you do? And how have you set your organization up to be so successful? And then the third thing I would say is surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and ask for advice, because people are willing to help. So surround yourself with a team that's smarter than you and put your ego aside, because that's what works. So work your butt off. Don't hesitate, to learn as much as you can, and check your ego at the door.
That research component is crucial. I read a quote once that said, success leaves clues. That successful people will leave these breadcrumbs for you to follow. And it sounds like you have done just that. You've reached out. There's really no point in reinventing the wheel. Everything we're trying to do has been done before. And if you can learn from someone else and learn to do it better, your starting point is much more at an advantage. And I also love the fact that you surround yourself with smart people. If you're trying to build a team, don't go and pick people who are just like you, who know exactly what you know. Find people who know more than you know and learn from them as well. And like you said, leave your ego at the door. Absolutely brilliant. So you're now this amazing organization. You're scaling pretty quickly. What are the teething problems that you are finding with scaling? I know you said that it's more challenging. You started off quite small and now you're in the $1 million mark. What are the main challenges you're experiencing right now?
A passion, right? So it's my baby. I've known every step of the way to get where we've gotten. So now it's, how do you teach that, and how do you motivate, inspire, and develop your team? And then the other component is the stuff that I don't love, which is the HR and the legal and the accounting, and making sure that we're protected as an organization. So that's what we're in right now. We just developed a 3-year strategic plan to make sure that the organization is guided. Because when it was just my dad and I, it was, hey, Dad, what do you want to do about this? And then we would decide. But reporting to a board of directors, our board of directors they're executives, and they have so much information and so much. How do you leverage that? And then the biggest challenge for me is delegation. I'm a doer, so I like to do everything myself. And now I've gotten to the point where I have to delegate, and that's a blessing and a curse. So with growing pains, that's what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you were pregnant for a while and you had this idea inside you. Now the baby is out into the world. It's got legs. It's starting to walk, and you still want to hold on to it and not quite let go, right?
Yep, 100%.
Absolutely fascinating. So if I could take you into the future, you're now 120 years old. With all of the sporting activities you do, you'll probably live to 150, and with science helping. If I could take you into the future and you could go and sit and have a conversation with the older you, this wise woman who's led you to that point, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
I would say, believe in what you do, be confident, and do what you go with your gut, right? So they say you do everything, like when you're a mom. I'm a mom. So you go with your gut. So as an older me, I'd say, whatever that is, don't hold back, because this person made a suggestion. Go with your gut, and do what's right, because a lot, that's the ethical component, right? So we teach that in our in with student aces. It's like sometimes it's not always what the legal or whatever, but it's what's right by a kid. So the older me would say, look at, preparing for the future, just go with your gut and do what's right.
Our intuition is everything. And you're so right. The reason why I like to ask that question is a lot of women second guess themselves. We are born with all of the answers to what we're supposed to create. We do know how to do it. It's in us, but we just forget for a little bit. And so if you can dig deep into that future you and ask her, what is my next step? How am I going to do this? The answers will percolate and they will come. And trusting your gut, I think, is a really big component to anything you'll create. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it, no matter what other people have to say. So really good advice there. So now that you are in this position where things are blossoming and growing and scaling, where do you see this organization 5-10 years from now?
So I see this organization as impacting as many people as possible. So if we can scale the curriculum and inform as many individuals as possible where to find it, how to utilize it. So we work with high school student athletes. So these kids have gone on to college all across the country and overseas. So if they are driving this, then you continue to impact thousands and tens of thousands and millions. So if they can take that one thing, right? Because you never know, especially with teenagers, you never know when it works, right? But a couple of years later, you get that call, hey, Miss Chrissy, can you send my resume out? Or, hey, that one thing that you told me about working really hard, that I realize that now, right? Because they'll make mistakes. It's how you overcome those mistakes and how you fail. So if as many kids as possible of our kids that we work with or people that come across our curriculum inspire others, then you have a global movement. So that's where I see it going in 5 to 10 years, is those key things. If you hear our students, they say a work ethic second to none, and respect is earned, and trust is earned. So those kinds of key things that you continue to hear throughout, wherever these kids are.
Fantastic. My last question is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't? What are your parting thoughts for us today?
What could you ask me that you didn't? I think everybody wants a quick fix, right? So there is no quick fix. When you're talking about mentoring or impacting lives, it's listening, right? So everybody says, loves to throw out mentoring. Everybody needs a mentor, right? But it's the right mentor. It's somebody that's committed. So when you commit to mentoring a young person, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. So for anybody who's listening that wants to mentor one of our youth in our world, just remember that every decision that you make impacts them. So your word is everything. So when you say that you're going to do something, especially my kids that have been through so much trauma, make sure you do what you're going to say. And if you're not, then just be completely honest. And I think that's something that, I've learned and I've witnessed working with other adults in this industry, is your word is everything with kids.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming online today and gracing us with your presence, sharing this amazing story with us and with our community. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The HerStory Circle is attracting some phenomenal women, movers and shakers who are empowering the next generation. Chrissy, what you're doing is literally empowering the next generation of leaders. absolute honor to have had this interview with you. So tune in again tomorrow, everybody, when I interview yet another amazing woman. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Chrissy, thanks again for this interview. Bye for now.
Thank you, Gertrude. It was amazing. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And that was the only note that I
I need you to.
huh?
Okay, we're back.
Okay.
So that was the last of our presenters. Thank you so much, Terry, for being here, holding space and helping this take off, especially in the morning with all of the little hiccups we've had.
It's been my pleasure.
You supporting me today. And let's say thank you to everybody who tuned in, all of those who chimed in through Facebook, through YouTube. Please share this message. We'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing day. Tomorrow will be day 5, Terry. We're almost halfway there.
Okay, and I will be here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Thanks again, Terry, and bye for now.
Okay. Bye for now. Thank you.
Okay.